Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Millie and today I'm going to be ranking all the eyeshadow palettes I tried in the month of August. There are 5 palettes and I've been doing this pretty much for most of 2022 where I've been ranking any palettes that I try in the whole month. So it doesn't matter if it's 2 palettes, 3 palettes, 10 palettes, I will rank them. So let's get right into it. And I do want to preface this with none of these palettes are bad. It really comes down to personal preference of formulas, colors, color stories, etc. So in 5th place is the Meant to Be palette from Sugar Drizzle Polish. I did receive this palette in PR, and this is a cute little 9-pan eyeshadow palette. I just wasn't in love with the color story. I like the shadows in here except for Pollinates because this one is a black based multi-chrome and it's not really that shiny. It took quite a bit of building up. I probably wouldn't reach for this one over my single multi-chrome eyeshadows because I do definitely have dupes to this that are shinier, especially from Clionadh. I do wish that there was one more matte besides this one, though I do really enjoy this matte shadow. I really love the color of it. As for the other shades, they're really beautiful, shiny shadows. However, I already feel like I definitely have some of these shadows across some other eyeshadow palettes from other brands, so that's really why this one is coming in 5th place. And in 4th place is the Tropicolor palette, which is a collaboration palette between Sydney Grace and Tina from the Fancy Face. And I did do a dedicated video on all of these eyeshadow palettes. In case you're interested, I will link them down in the description box, so definitely check those out. The main reason I'm ranking this one as number 4 is because 2 reasons. I do prefer some of these other color stories to this one, but also the shimmers in here, while they are really nice, beautiful shimmery shadows, they're not my preferred type of shimmery shadow. Like, I really want some sparkle, some shine, shift, or just something a little bit extra. So it's not that these are bad, it's just not my preference. They're really nice and smooth. If you don't like sparkly, shiny, flaky shadows, that is just not your speed, then you will definitely enjoy these. There are 2 shadows in here, Waterfalls and Dr. Bird. They're a little bit on the flaky side. Definitely recommend a glitter primer, but the rest of them are just like a really nice, reliable, smooth formula from Sydney Grace. If you know that formula and you love it because you know that it won't accentuate any skin texture, then this is definitely for you. As I said, totally comes down to personal preference. In 3rd place is the Sorcerer palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. This is their 2nd eyeshadow palette. I think I prefer the first one just because it's grungier, and also this one has two or three squishy shades. Specifically, Polymorph is very squishy, so it is kind of like a pro and con between this palette and the Tropicolor palette, because while I prefer the color story and the shimmer finishes in this one, I don't exactly love the squishy shadows because they do crease on me pretty badly no matter what sort of eyeshadow primer I use underneath them. And I did mention that in the dedicated video on this palette. I just feel a little bit constricted when there are squishy shadows like that because I know I can't just use them like wherever I please on my lid because they're most likely going to crease unless I know that I'm not going to be wearing the eyeshadow for a very long time, but definitely wouldn't wear these shades if I wanted like 8 to 12 hour wear time out of eyeshadow. I thought the mattes were nice. They were a little bit on the thinner side, but I had really no issues with these. I really enjoyed this color story. I really like this palette overall, just a little bit restricted here and there. And in 2nd place is the ItsBel Cool Summer palette. And because this got launched in August, I like to think of it as kind of the last hurrah of summer eyeshadow palette. Definitely pretty colorful. The only con I had in this palette is these 2 shades are so similar. I really don't think that they needed to be in this palette, especially because they're next to each other. While there's no depth in here, I do appreciate a summer colorful eyeshadow palette. It doesn't always need to have depth in it. That's such a personal preference. Overall, I really thought that the textures in here were super fun, especially paired with the mattes. This is the first time that ItsBel did matte eyeshadows, and I gotta say they're a little bit on the thinner side. I feel like some of the shades I couldn't quite build up to the opacity the way that they look in the pan, but if anything, that makes them more beginner friendly because you get to build them up however you want to. If you feel a little bit intimidated, you can really go in with a light hand, get a light wash of color, and just throw a shimmer on the lid. So that's why this one is ranking at number 2. And in the 1st place, if you could have guessed based on all the eyeshadow palettes I have tried, if you watched all my videos, it is the new Nomad palette, and this one is a bright and colorful palette. So really, obviously, my preferences are pretty clear, I think, in this ranking, and I just feel like this quality is so good between the shimmers and the mattes. I love the colors in here. I love the dual chrome shadows. I think this one is such a hit. But of course, if you already have lots of colorful eyeshadow palettes, I do understand that you only need so many. But if you do not have any and you're thinking of adding some that has some shimmers in it, then definitely would say go for this one. The shimmers are just so spectacular, very shiny, just my preference. And then the shade Hanging Bridges is such an interesting shade. I mean, I could wear this like 3 times a week, and that means a lot coming from me because I don't like to repeat shadows. I don't like to wear the same thing over and over again. I like to definitely at least switch up the shimmers. So I think this was a great addition to the palette, as well as this shade, the Two-Toed Sloth. I just love the tone of this. I was kind of talking about it in my dedicated video on the palette. It's just such an interesting, like, dark pukey brown, and I just love it so much, and it's gonna look amazing paired with Hanging Bridges. Maybe I should do that for a reel. I think I'm going to do that because those two would pair so beautifully together. So this palette is #1 for the month of August. Let me know in the comments below if you tried any of these palettes and if you were surprised by my ranking. I would love to hear your thoughts. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure you check out the dedicated videos on these palettes in case you missed them. And I hope to see you next time.